Project Bill here as always, and again and before we begin, if you're interested in knowing who the thumbnail artist is for the amazing thumbnail, well, it's me and AI and a lot of annoyance in my mind. And also know this version of Izuku will be way confident than the original one, but will also be a prodigy and also a little cynical as well. And if you don't know what cynical means, then let me explain so you don't say, huh, every other second. So a cynical person is someone who believes that human actions are motivated purely by self-interest rather than by unselfish or honorable reasons, or in simple terms mean basically monkey feel like other monkeys share banana for future profit via charity, making the other monkeys happy and see kindness as someone kind of banana debt. And if you did not understand that, then look it up because who am I kidding? You guys can't read. But let's not talk about facts and instead begin, what if Prodigy DEKU had a half portal and half barrier quirk? And we begin this story and to Japan, Hosu City, and to a 14-year-old Izuku Midoriya in a taxi as he was being taken to UA High, and Izuku was listening to music just chilling until the taxi stopped and Izuku asked the driver what was wrong, and the pointer in front of him. And Izuku looked around, there seeing that there is some kind of sludge villain causing chaos with some civilians in the front blocking the side road while the heroes tried to stop the villain. As Izuku sighed and got out of the taxi and paid the driver and got his bag, as he was about to create a portal to escape until the sludge villain frickin' a car at the civilians, and Izuku quickly went into action as he created portal to send the car back at the sludge villain, as he started walking through the crowd to see what's in the front, as he started hearing shit about the heroes being unable to do anything because none of them have the right quirk to deal with the sledge villain, and that the sledge villain also had a hostage. And Izuku sighed hearing that, rubbing his temples, muttering, "Useless idiots," as he looked at the sledge villain and his eyes went to the hostage, who was Katsuki Bakugo, as Izuku had an even bigger sigh in his face, and this is where we do a flashback of Izuku's life and how it went. Now, and to Izuku's life, as he had the same parents like in the original, and in this timeline, Hisashi actually stayed and did not go get the milk. But from the thumbnail, you saw Izuku is born with white hair and an orange and blue respectively on each eye, heterochromia to be exact, and this caused a lot of problem in Hisashi's mind, because his son barely looked like him or Inko, and this set off a lot of alarms, and while the quirk doctor did state some quirks can affect a child's appearance, Hisashi still felt, well, destroyed. But in the following years of Izuku's life, Izuku was always in a sense of the word perfect, like good at everything. He's nice, kind, and smart, like he's the perfect son. And this made him great. Like, yeah, Inko was proud, and Hisashi should be as well, but there was tension. And if you're wondering, Izuku had met Bakugo, but their relation of being childhood friends is dead because Izuku does not see Bakugo as a friend because of Bakugo's way of doing things and his personality and his, well, overall attitude. And while they both did butt heads a lot, Izuku won every time, which over time created a one-sided rivalry of Bakugo wanting to be better than Izuku, and Izuku ignoring Bakugo, and due to Izuku being good at nearly everything, had jealousy for Izuku's accomplishments, feats, and extremely strong dual quirk, and overall everyone just liked Izuku and always listened to him, which in Bakugo furious, jealous, and basically Bakugo wants to get out of Izuku's shadow and beat him. And while Bakugo tries that, Izuku was still himself, and he was smart and logical as well, and knew more than most his age knew, and while there was a lot of tension at home of Hisashi being a shit parent while Inko being the good one, there was tension, and the fact that Inko wanted a divorce but could not do it because of being afraid of Hisashi and what he would do, her and him, and Izuku knew it but did not say anything about it until when Izuku was at the age of 12 and was going back home and got there, and before opening the door, he heard some screaming as he stopped himself and listened in as another fight was going on, and a lot of screaming as well. Of screaming as he looked through the window seeing Hisashi and Inko arguing about him again, until Hisashi picked up one of the beer bottles and, well, smashed it on Inko's head, even though Inko could have dodged, as Izuku's eyes widened as Inko's body fell on the ground, blood dripping from her head, as Izuku burst through the window and created a portal under Hisashi, sending him to space unknowingly because of the fact that his mom is literally about to die, as he went to her asking if she was okay. And Izuku replied that she does not have enough time, but just maybe this can make Hisashi go away from Izuku's life, and Izuku after that, with the rest of the time she had before she died, explained that there was no other choice but this, so Izuku could have a good life and achieve his dreams without Hisashi getting in the way, and that even though Hisashi was like this, he can change if time takes its course, Inko stated as her last words as she died in Izuku's hands, as Izuku's expression was just, why? Like, why did she had to give her damn life away for him to have one? There could be other ways to solve this, but why? And the fact that she said Hisashi could change is the most bullshit thing he has ever heard up to this point, as random portals started opening, as he didn't feel sad, but he felt cold. Not cold because he's shivering, but cold because the sun in his heart, Inko's warmth, just proved to be a flickering candle that blew itself out for no logical reason, as Izuku's cynicism basically went all out. You died for someone who caused you pain, us pain, and you still wanted to? Izuku stopped him from saying it as he got out of the house and ran away, never looking back, feeling like absolute shit, and in the following 2 years, Izuku stayed alone, just feeling distraught, down, and like shit, but reality hit him hard as he realized now he was alone, and now he had to live alone, which he did, and after some brainstorming and a few legal loopholes, he made use of his teleportation by taking people from one place to another, and that became his main source of income. Even though he was young, he was smart, and that's what kept him alive. And so he survived. While Bakugo in all of this did not know anything that happened, but he was happy at the fact that Izuku was no longer in his school being #1, and that he now can be #1. But this is where we now end the flashback. Ba-ba-ba-ba-ba-ba-ba. And to Izuku, as he looked at the sludge villain and Bakugo encased in the villain, as Bakugo was struggling, as the heroes can't really do anything, because like I mentioned, their quirks don't have the right advantage, and Izuku, hearing that, sighed. Death Arms, can't you try throwing a car to distract the villain? Kamui Wood said. Not if I want to explain to the media why I flattened a kid to paste. Negative. Too risky. We have to wait for someone with a better quirk to show up. I feel like shit for standing around and practically doing nothing while the kid chokes on slime. But what other choice do I have? Death Arms said, as he and Kamui Woods moved to keep the crowd at a safe distance, while Izuku sighed again as he rushed in, ignoring the heroes who called out to him, as he said, "Barrier liquid." And then the sludge villain picked off the ground, seemingly floating, as the hostage, Bakugo, was now on the ground, as Izuku paid him no mind and turned the dome of invisible smaller and smaller on the size of a jar as the sludge villain passed out, as the civilians and the pro-heroes standing there were very much shocked as Izuku ignored them and turned off the barrier as the sludge villain fell on the ground in a small puddle as Izuku was about to walk away from this place until a heavy hand suddenly grabbed his shoulder. Hold it right there, kid. It was Death Arms, looking less like a hero and more like a gym teacher who just caught someone smoking behind the bleachers. Behind him, Kamui Woods and Mount Lady were approaching, their faces a mix of embarrassment and professional indignation. The crowd, which had been silent a second ago, was now whispering, phone cameras pointed directly at the scene, while Izuku's expression had not changed in the slightest. "You've got some explaining to do," Death Arms grunted, his voice loud enough for the reporters to catch. "Using your quirk in public without a license? That's a serious violation of the law. You put yourself and the hostage in danger by acting recklessly. If you don't out that hand away, you will be in a world of pain," Izuku said, finally looking back at Death Arms. Death Arms' eyes widened with the threat. "Is that a threat, brat?" Death Arms said, growling, until his body was sent forward to a building wall against Izuku's invisible barriers. Don't get in my way, Izuku said, looking at Kamui Woods and Mount Lady as he opened a portal and walked through it, leaving without a single trace. As Kamui Woods and Mount Lady froze, their eyes darting between the crater in the wall where Death Arms was currently pinned, while the crowd was dead silent, the only sound being the distant sirens and the soft hiss of the sludge villain's remains. Did a middle schooler just bench press a pro hero into a brick wall? Mount Lady whispered, but Kamui Woods didn't answer. He was too busy looking at the spot where the portal had been, as he decided to report to the Hero Public Safety Commission, and this is where we now get back to Izuku, who just got a random apartment to live for the next 10 months until the UA entrance exam starts, and not caring about what he just did, and this is where we now start the 10-month training arc. As he ignored the baffled stares of the other contestants and opened a portal, leaving as quick as he did being here, and we now get back to the observation room again for more content on this video. And like I said, we get back to the observation room again, and this part of everyone talking will be made by AI, so skip it if you want to, but it's mostly glazing plus Aizawa saying something tasty. And so, in the observation room, the silence was so heavy you could hear the steam rising from Nezu's tea. 389? Vlad King muttered, his jaw practically hitting the floor. He didn't just pass, he turned the most difficult entrance exam in the country into a live-streamed execution of robotics. It's the efficiency that bothers me, Midnight added, crossing her arms. She wasn't looking at the points, she was looking at the replay of Izuku smiling sadistically before he pulled the trigger on those portals. He didn't save that girl because he was worried. He did it like he was checking a box on a to-do list. And the way he talked to her, calling her appearance adequate before warping her away like a piece of luggage, that boy is cold. Aizawa didn't say a word. He was staring at the footage of the zero-pointer being sliced. He noticed that Izuku hadn't just used portals to destroy it, he had calculated the structural weak points of the Titan's armor and placed the rifts exactly where they would cause the most catastrophic failure. It was a level of battlefield IQ that most pros didn't reach until their 30s. He's a prodigy, Shota, Nezu said, his black eyes twinkling with a dangerous mix of curiosity and caution. But he's a prodigy who has already decided that the world is beneath him. He doesn't see heroes and villains. He sees competent people and idiots. And if we don't handle him correctly, we aren't just training a hero. We're training the person who could dismantle the Hero Public Safety Commission by lunch. I'll take him, Aizawa said suddenly, his voice raspy. All eyes turned to the underground hero. You? Present Mike asked, surprised. You usually expel kids for having too much ego. This kid is basically a walking skyscraper of ego. Exactly, Aizawa grunted, narrowing his eyes at the screen where Izuku was walking through a portal to leave. He thinks he's unbeatable because he can move space. He thinks he's the only one who understands how the world works. I want to see how that cynicism holds up when he meets someone who can erase his godhood with a single look. He needs to learn that even a genius can bleed if they're too arrogant to look down. 2 weeks later, results day. Izuku was in his apartment, sitting on a floor crate because he hadn't bothered to buy a real chair yet. He was currently eating a convenience store rice ball when the holographic letter from UA projected on the wall. He didn't even flinch when All Might's giant muscular face appeared. I am here as a Skip, Izuku said flatly, waving his hand. The recording fast-forwarded through All Might's speech about justice and heart. Izuku didn't care about the why, he only cared about the what. The screen flickered to the scoreboard. First place, Izuku, 389 villain points / 100 rescue points. Total, 489 points. The previous record held by All Might had been shattered by nearly double. You've set a new standard, young man. All Might's voice returned to normal speed. But remember, being a hero is more than just power. We noticed your attitude during the exam, the way you treated your fellow examinees. At UA, we will teach you what it truly means to care." Izuku reached out and crushed the projector's power button, cutting All Might off mid-sentence. "I think caring is the last thing I will do, but good thing I hear smashable," Izuku said angrily, as the memory of Inko's death flashed into his mind as he threw the letter onto the wall, which opened a portal to his favorite trash can volcano area as it was destroyed, and Izuku sighed. And this is where we now jump cut to the next day and to Izuku in an augmented UA High uniform so he could move properly without restraint as he got into UA High, ignoring the second and third years as he went to class 1A and opened the door. As he saw that two people were already arguing, and they were Katsuki Bakugo and the kid in the entrance exam, Ida, and Izuku sighed as Bakugo stopped, his eyes going to the door. Where Izuku is, as Bakugo's eyes narrowed, sparks of explosion on his hand. "You," Bakugo said, growling, his voice low and vibrating with a decade's worth of built-up inferiority. "I knew you'd show up, you damn white-haired freak. Think you're hot shit because you broke some record? Your character development has not changed, meaning talking to you is like talking to a poisoned brick." Aizawa said flatly as he walked to the yellow sleeping bag and kicked it. "Get your ass up and teach us. I don't have time to waste with these morons here with me." Izuku said as the yellow sleeping bag didn't move for a second. Then a slow, tired rustle came from within. Aizawa Shoda zipped it down, his messy black hair falling over his bloodshot eyes like he'd just been through a war. He looked up from the floor, staring directly at Izuku's mixed-matched eyes. 3 seconds. You found me exactly, and 0 seconds to decide that physical violence was the most efficient way to wake me up," Aizawa said, his voice a low, dangerous rasp, as he stood up. He didn't look angry, he looked intrigued, which was far worse. "You've got guts, kid, or maybe you're just too arrogant to realize when you're standing on the edge of a cliff." Aizawa, hearing that, didn't flinch. "I'm standing on solid ground, Sensei. You were loitering in the doorway like a discarded banana peel. I'm here to get my license, not to wait for you to finish your nap. Now, are we going to do something productive, or should I just warp home and read a textbook? It would be a better use of my time." Aizawa's eyes flashed red for a split second, a silent warning, but he just sighed and pulled a stack of gym uniforms from the podium. "Rational. Rude, but rational. Everyone, put these on and head to the PE grounds. Now." And after Aizawa said that, everyone started getting ready, and in the boys' room, Izuku started to change, and he was ripped to no end, as Kirishima asked what workouts does Izuku, and Izuku, hearing that, calmly and not insultingly said, "I trained till I passed out and rested when needed, that's all, and plus some good genetics, that's all, and you're good too. And you seem competent, so wanna be friends?" Izuku said, holding out his phone, which has his number, and Kirishima said, "Yes," and after that, everyone got out. As the class stood in a semicircle whispering, Ochiko was looking at Izuku with a mix of fear and curiosity, while Indaya was literally vibrating with indignation over Izuku's disrespectful conduct. "We're having a quirk apprehension test," Aizawa announced. "Izuku, you finished first in the exam with a record-breaking score. In middle school, what was your best result for the softball throw?" "I didn't attend middle school for the last 2 years," Izuku replied, stepping into the circle. He tossed the ball in his hand, feeling its weight. "But the human limit is usually around 67 meters. Use your quirk. Don't hold back," Aizawa said, his eyes narrowing. He wanted to see the prodigy show his hand. And Izuku's expression had not changed, as a portal opened and he just let the ball as it went through the portal, as Aizawa's detector read infinity. "Where did the ball go?" Aizawa said. "To America and on top of the Statue of Liberty," Izuku said, getting out of the circle as the class stood in stunned silence. Aizawa stared at the device, then back at the white-haired boy. Most students tried to show off with raw power, but Izuku was showing off with precision. To open a portal at such a specific, distant coordinate required a level of mental calculation that was frankly terrifying. Irrational, Aizawa muttered, though he looked like he needed a much stronger cup of coffee. Bakugo, you're next. Try not to blow up the school. Bakugo stomped into the circle, his face a shade of purple that looked physically painful as shit. He didn't just want to throw the ball, he wanted to erase Izuku's existence. Die! He screamed, unleashing a massive explosion. 705.2 meters. It was an incredible score, but compared to infinity, it felt like a joke. Bakugo stood there, panting, waiting for the praise, but the class was still whispering about the America comment. Is that all? Izuku's voice cut through the air. He wasn't even looking at Bakugo, he was checking his nails. I've seen firecrackers with more kick, but I suppose for a monkey that's quite a leap. You damn... Bakugo lunged, but Aizawa's scarf wrapped around him like a strike from a cobra. Stop it, I'm erasing your quirk, Aizawa sighed, his eyes glowing red. And Izuku, stop baiting him. We have 6 more tests to get through. 50-meter dash, everyone to the starting line. As in fastest was made by Ida at 3.04 seconds, but when it was Izuku's turn, Izuku didn't even run. He took a single step forward into a portal that appeared right in front of him, 0.01 seconds. The sensor didn't even have time to beep correctly. Izuku was already standing at the finish line, leaning against the sensor pole before the sound of the starting gun had even faded. Cheater, someone from the back of the class yelled, likely Mineta. That's just teleporting, that's not a dash. Ask Aizawa that question, and the person who said cheating stopped their mouths. And when it came to the grip strength test, the class crowded around while All Might stated that the clothes make the pros, and then he pressed a button on a remote as everyone's hero outfits came into existence, as everyone took theirs and Izuku as well, and then everyone started getting ready. And after it was done, everyone got out, as Izuku wore something that allowed him to move freely and no cape. No flashy colors except red and gold, like it's basically a suit of a gentleman. But with the things I just said, as Kirishima said something good about Izuku's outfit, while All Might explained about the 2v2 heroes versus villains mock test. And the first round was between the villains, Izuku and Kirishima, and the heroes, Katsuki Bakugo and Shoto Todoroki. And after All Might said that Bakugo was salivating at the thought of finally putting Izuku in his place, finally, while Todoroki still had the daddy issues, while Izuku and Kirishima went to the bomb room, Kirishima asked, Izuku, how can they protect the bomb? I have a barrier quirk. Hope that explains, Izuku said in a monotone voice, as Kirishima, embarrassed, nodded, as he asked how can they deal with Bakugo and Todoroki. You're going to fight them. Prove yourself to me, and this will help you be stronger, so get to it and do it in 2 minutes, because I can do it in less than 10 seconds when All Might gives the go, Izuku said. 2 minutes? Got it. I've spent the last 4 days bleeding and getting crushed just to keep up with your shadow. I'm not letting some explosions or ice slow me down now. I'll show you that your shield doesn't just sit around. I'm gonna be the one to break them. Don't blink, Izuku, because I'm going to be the most rational wall they've ever hit. And that your is the most manliest thing ever, Kirishima said, and Izuku hearing that nodded, as after a bit All Might gave the go, and Kirishima rushed through out of the bomb room as Izuku stayed, as we now get to Kirishima coming down, and as he rounds the corner, Bakugo is already screaming at Todoroki to stay out of his way. Todoroki, cold and indifferent, is raising his right foot to freeze the entire building. Kirishima doesn't hesitate. He remembers Izuku's lessons on efficiency. Before Todoroki can stop, Kirishima slammed his hardened fist into the floor with a massive red gauntlet strike. The floor shattered, vibrating the ground so violently that Todoroki loses his balance, causing his ice trail to veer off course and hit the wall instead of the hallway. Silencing the firecracker, Bakugo, seeing his opening, lunged at Kirishima with a massive explosion. "Get out of the way, shitty hair!" In the past, Kirishima would have blocked and been pushed back. Now he's Izuku trained. He leans into the blast, letting his hardened skin absorb the heat, which he's now conditioned to ignore. He uses the smoke of the explosion as cover. While Bakugo is laughing at his hit, Kirishima bursts through the soot and delivers a precise, heavy headbutt. Bakugo's head snaps back, and Kirishima follows up with a rib-shattering liver blow. Bakugo wheezes, his air gone, and Kirishima tosses him aside like a discarded toy. Shattering the ice, Todoroki recovers and sends a wave of ice spikes toward Kirishima. Kirishima doesn't slow down. He remembers Izuku's stabbing training. He turns his body into a spinning drill, his hardened edges slicing through the ice like a diamond through glass. Todoroki's eyes widen. He's never seen a physical fighter move this fast through his defense. Kirishima closes the gap in seconds. He doesn't punch Todoroki's face. He grabs Todoroki's right arm, the ice side, and applies a crushing grip. The ice doesn't bother him. He's been through worse in Izuku's training. "Izuku said you're just a monkey with a gimmick," Kirishima grunted, his voice deep and gravelly. "Show me something manly or get out of the way." With a surge of strength, Kirishima performs a judo throw, slamming Todoroki into the ice he just created. Before Todoroki can reset, Kirishima pins him down, his hardened weight making it impossible for the boy to move his right side to freeze anything. Kirishima taps his earpiece, breathing heavily, but standing over the two prodigies. Bakugo is groaning on the floor, and Todoroki is pinned under Kirishima's unbreakable knee. "Izuku," Kirishima pants, looking at his watch. 1 minute and 52 seconds, both targets neutralized, your wall held up. And Izuku, in all of this from his perspective, heard a few noises, and first were Bakugo yapping shit, and Kirishima talking about manliness, and then a few more explosions, and a lot more screaming, and then a wall about to break, which is making the building break. "Oh God, it's making the building break," Izuku said, looking down to see the building have cracks, and he ignored it and waited after 1 minute and 50 seconds. "Izuku," Kirishima said, panting, looking at his watch. 1 minute and 52 seconds, both targets neutralized, your wall held up. Kirishima said through the earpiece, 100 points for success, I guess, and don't try telling anyone I trained you," Izuku said, as 2 portals came under Bakugo and Todoroki, sending them to Recovery Girl's office, as he created a portal under him and one under Kirishima to now get them to the observation room to see the shocked stares of their classmates, as Izuku decided not to take because this will be stupid either way. As he opened another portal, leaving before All Might talks about some more hero shit, as the class started praising Kirishima for taking down the 2 strongest students in Class 1A, and Kirishima took the glory like a man, and this is where we now jump cut to a week later, and in this week, Izuku trained both Momo and Kirishima harder, this time focusing on their weaknesses to make them into advantages, like teaching Momo how to throw hands, while teaching Kirishima some techniques on how to read people, and that's all that he did. Plus not being in Class 1A, because most of the shit they teach is shit he already knows. And other Izuku did is train himself more, because why not?
But this is where we now jump cut to Class 1A receiving some slips to be taken to the USJ, and most of them got theirs signed, but Izuku did not get his because first, his parents are dead, second, because Nezu and All Might want to talk to him, so everyone else goes to the USJ, which was saddening to Momo and Kirishima, but they understood, and so everyone else went to the USJ, while right now, Izuku is in front of Nezu and All Might in Nezu's office. And they basically went back and forth on why Izuku did not go class for these past few days, and Izuku stated that he already knew most of the things they were going to teach, and after that more back and forths happened as Nezu asked why Izuku decided to train Momo and Kirishima, and Nezu also stated that there was no point in lying because they knew, and hearing that answered with the fact that competent heroes are better than incompetent, and while Nezu agreed on that, All Might asked about Izuku's, well, empathy, and why does he act like this, and Izuku, hearing that, made a nerve in his break, but he calmed himself and spoke nicer for what he was going to say, as he told All Might that it's some personal business, and that he should not talk about it, and after that, All Might said nothing until Iida burst through the door room, quickly explaining what's happening in the USJ, and the three of them hearing that got quickly ready as All Might was about to leave until Izuku told him not to, as Izuku asked Nezu if he had any pic of the USJ, and Nezu nodded and took one from his drawer, and Izuku saw it, nodding as he opened a portal into the USJ, as All Might instantly jumped in while Izuku got all of the other heroes in 30 seconds and explained what was happening, and after that they all went in there as well to see All Might fighting some kind of buff bird monster while Aizawa is down, and Bakugo and Kirishima, as the teachers rushed in instantly to help All Might, and Koroguri and Shigaraki were confused at the hero's arrival until Shigaraki felt an invisible force hit him as he was sent against the USJ wall as he passed out instantly, and before Koroguri can do anything, he was also hit with the same invisible force, which netted up hitting his metal part, which was his weakness, as he had also passed out. And Izuku looked back to All Might and the other heroes defeating the Nomu, but slightly struggling, as he sighed and created a portal under the Nomu, sending it to an inactive volcano which he knows won't explode, as the heroes were confused, and All Might asked Izuku where did he sent that thing. In a volcano. And before you make a speech about life, just know it's mindless, and you all seemed to struggle, so I helped, Izuku said, as he portaled around the USJ, getting everyone out of there and back to UH, and All Might and Nezu as well, while the rest of the heroes dealt with the rest of the villains. And after everything ended, every Class 1A student was sent to the hospital, and UH was shut down for a week to deal with the press, and Shigaraki.
And in the Heroes versus Villain test, he could not use it because it would be destructive too, because the building would have crashed down. And in the USJ, he was able to use it, but still lost against that damn bird brain. But now in front of Izuku, there was no holding back. And this is where Bakugo's flashback ended. We now get back to the arena as Izuku and Bakugo looked at the each until Midnight gave the go. "You look different, Katsuki," Izuku remarked, his voice cutting through the roar of the stadium. He didn't take a fighting stance. He just stood there, hands in his pockets, the very image of a man waiting for a bus. "Your heart rate is elevated beyond your usual angry mutt baseline. Did you find a new chew toy, or did you finally grow a brain?" Bakugo didn't scream. For the first time in his life, he didn't lead with a mindless roar. A low, rhythmic hum seemed to vibrate the very air around him, and faint, glowing veins of red energy flickered across his skin before vanishing into his muscles. "I'm done being your shadow, Deku," Bakugo said, his voice dropping to a dangerous, gravelly whisper. "You think you're the only one born special? You think you're the only one with a rational path to the top? I've been given something, a power you can't even calculate with that freak brain of yours. It's not just explosions anymore, it's everything." Izuku raised an eyebrow. He'd studied the files on every known Quirk strengthening drug and enhancement procedure. Nothing matched this. Interesting. An external power source? Or a late-blooming secondary factor? A gift? How charming. Usually gifts are given to those who can't achieve things on their own. "Shut up and die!" Bakugo vanished. He didn't use an explosion to move himself, he simply wasn't there anymore. The speed was purely physical, a raw kinetic burst that even Izuku's trained eyes barely tracked. Bakugo reappeared a foot away from Izuku's face, his fist wound back. 5%. Detroit Impact! The punch hit Izuku's micro-barrier. Usually, the barrier acted like a perfect mirror, reflecting 100% of the force back at the attacker. But the moment Bakugo's fist connected, the sound wasn't a metallic clink, it was a thunderclap that shattered the windows of the stadium's broadcast booth. The barrier cracked. Izuku felt the shockwave travel through the air, forcing him to slide back half an inch. Force output exceeding 50 tons per square inch, Izuku's mind hummed. He's not just exploding, he's augmenting his physical density. "Not bad," Izuku said, his expression finally shifting from boredom to a sharp clinical curiosity. "You've moved up from monkey to great ape, but a bigger hammer doesn't make you a better builder." Bakugo didn't wait for the retort. He began a high-speed orbit around Izuku, moving so fast he created a whirlwind of dust and debris. From within the storm, he launched a barrage of howitzer impacts, each one infused with the raw physical power of One for All. "Stupid, but where did you get this power is the question. But right now, let's battle," Izuku said, as a barrier smashed onto Bakugo, sending him flying away, as Bakugo catched himself by exploding away as he felt a pain from that blunt attack alone. As he realized if he kept this up, Izuku would win this, and he can't let that happen, Bakugo thought to himself, knowing he needed to all out, as Izuku stood there looking at him with those mismatched eyes. As Bakugo's eyes didn't just glow, they burned. The blue-white sparks of One for All began to arc so violently they scorched his own hero costume, the fabric smoking as his muscles expanded past their natural limits. "I'm done being your shadow, Deku," Bakugo said, his voice cracking. He didn't use an explosion to move. He used the sheer raw power of 100% in his legs to delete the distance between them, as the speed was too much for even Izuku, as instinctually a barrier came in front of his chest, as Bakugo used a 100% full power howitzer impact, as the barrier broke, getting rid of 70% of the force, but the 30% still hit Izuku, as he was sent flying to the wall of the sports festival, which cracked up to the stands, as some of the civilians were literally about to fall, as one of the heroes caught them before they could. As the stadium went dead silent, the smoke cleared to reveal Bakugo standing in the center of the arena, his right arm dangling uselessly at his side, purple and shredded, his breathing a ragged, bloody mess. I got him," Bakugo wheezed, a manic, broken grin spreading across his face. "The monkey finally bit back," Bakugo finished saying and laughing, until Izuku's body twitched as he dropped down, but a barrier catched him from falling onto the grass and out of the arena. As he got started getting up, blood on his face, hair, and chest, as he ripped off his shirt, as he was smiling. "Ribs broken, and that should have knocked or killed most people, or all people, but I am not most or all people. And this was the first time I was caught off guard, so be happy you achieved that. And thanks for the free lesson on such strength, but it's time to lose," Izuku said, with some blood in his mouth, as he was not down, nor was he going down that easily, as Bakugo was shell-shocked, bewildered, until he and barrier attack sent him flying outside the arena. As the stadium was so quiet you could hear the sizzle of the scorched tiles. Midnight, her hand over her mouth in genuine shock, finally raised her whip. "Bakugo is out of bounds. Izuku is the winner.
As the crowd didn't roar immediately, they were too busy trying to process the fact that a student had survived a hit that would have leveled a skyscraper. Izuku stood in the center of the arena. He walked over to the edge of the ring where Bakugo lay, twitching. The blonde was staring at the sky, tears of pain and frustration leaking from his eyes. Izuku looked down at him, his expression devoid of pity. "You didn't lose because you were weak, Katsuki. You lost because you treated a miracle like a crutch. Whoever gave you that power, and we both know you didn't earn it naturally, gave it to a monkey who only knows how to swing a bigger stick. You overextended. You prioritized the glory of a finishing move over the logic of survival." Izuku turned his back on him as the medical bots rushed in. He saw All Might in the stands, the hero's face a mask of pale, sweating terror. "He knows," Izuku realized. "He knows I saw through the gift." And this is where now we get to the aftermath. As in the infirmary, Recovery Girl was fussing over Izuku, but he had already used a micro-barrier to splint his own ribs internally. He walked out before she could finish, finding Momo and Kirishima waiting in the hallway. Both of them looked at him with a mixture of awe and genuine concern. "Izuku, that was, I don't even have a word for it, manliest win in history," Kirishima shouted, though he kept his voice lower than usual, noticing Izuku's state. "Your tactical analysis was correct," Momo added, her eyes sharp with newfound confidence. "If I had tried to match Bakugo's power with raw creation, I would have failed. But watching you, I realize I need to focus on the why of my creations, not just the what." Izuku gave them a single, sharp nod. "You both did well. You didn't win the gold, but you've moved past the baseline of your peers. Kirishima, your durability reached 85% efficiency against Bakugo's standard blasts. Momo, your decision-making speed is up. You are becoming useful tools in a world of liabilities." "High praise, coming from the guy who just corrected the strongest kid in school," Kirishima grinned. "Logic doesn't care about strongest. It only cares about who is left standing," Izuku finished stating, as now we get to the internship offers. "The offers are in," Aizawa said, projecting the numbers on the board. Izuku, 4,120, a record-breaking number. Todoroki, 2,200. Bakugo, 1,500, lowered due to his unstable performance. Momo, 600. Kirishima, 450. And the rest are the same like in the original. As Izuku was not in Class 1A today because he called in for sick, which was strange, but none of their business. But Izuku did give a letter to Nezu stating that he already knew how to run an hero agency, and because of that, Izuku was allowed to choose not to go to any agency, and for the next, 2 weeks, Izuku was nowhere to be seen, and even Momo and Kirishima had a hard time getting to him. And in this week of the Hosu incident, there was Stain, but no Nomus because Shigaraki's in Tartarus, while Ida tracked Stain but got murked, and so the internships ended and everyone was told to come back to UA, and UA was in a lot of shit for Ida's death, but Ida's family got them out of it by explaining some shit, and Izuku in all of this had not returned to UA High, which was getting worrying until 3 weeks later he came back into UA High with a new aura with him, because in this 5 weeks of skipping UA High and the internships, as everyone asked where Izuku was, and Izuku just said, "I was training, now get out of my way." And after that, he took his seat as Aizawa explained about the final exams, and everyone was down to shit, while Izuku stayed calm, while Momo asked why they make study together, and it was a great idea, but Izuku refused because he had some work to do, and so everyone else studied, and after a week later, the final exams began, and most got through the written portion, yada yada yada, but now it was the practical portion, and the students were now up against the heroes. But before we start, this we do jump cut to a day before the final exams was going to begin, and to Izuku training in some random forest until sensing someone behind a tree. "Get out, I know someone is here," Izuku said, as he got up and the people who were hiding came out, and there was